Chapter 277 to 279. Cutting through a chunk of wood for the nth time, Ray put so much lightning chakra into the strike, the puppet his blade impacted literally exploded in a shower of wooden splinters. It was already 2 hours since he started felling down puppets as if they were a forest, and with each additional kill, Ray felt as if he was getting back into the rhythm. It was a long time since he faced a lot of opponents, and even longer he exercised his blade techniques. Fighting against his girls in spars was good and all, but he already knew most of their moves. They didn't give him a chance to practice some sword styles either, since spars against them were in different power leagues, and there were many better ways to deal with them than using a sword. Heck, using some otherwise powerful sword techniques against them would be outright foolish, because they could just easily block or evade them. Now, however, Ray was surrounded by a multitude of mediocre targets with no tricky jutsu or biju-level chakra reserves, so he could let loose and simply have his body go through sword katas for kenjutsu styles he knew. It was really refreshing. As yet another puppet lost its head to Ray's sword, Ray thought, yes, I will definitely make Pakura remake these and then mass-produce them for training purposes. He didn't even put his mind into the fact that such a sheer number of advanced puppets would be able to take over a hidden village. For them, these chunks of wood were just practice targets. Ray sidestepped a stab from another humanoid puppet looking like a small creepy child, causing it to fly by his body. Hearing a clicking sound, he instantly spun on his heel, turning back, and saw the expected twist of the waist joint of the puppet causing its waist to turn backward. A pipe appeared on the palm of its bladeless hand, releasing yellow shine. Ray's fist impacted the puppet's head, sending it crashing to the ground and making it involuntarily aim the pipe towards the sky before it released the yellow explosive ball. Ray, much to his shame, fell for this trick once already, and he had no intention of giving Pakura more ammunition to tease him. At first, he was carefree and focused on the more artistic and cool sword katas he never used, because there were more practical ones for a real fight. But when he got hit for the first time because he momentarily forgot that he was fighting against puppets, and that meant they could twist their bodies at inhuman angles, Pakura just couldn't let it go and teased him. Ray just knew he would not hear the end of it for months, but he also acknowledged he deserved it. Honestly, from the current ninja puppetry point of view of Sunagakure, these puppets were kinda useless. Yes, they had all the advantages of puppets, and their bodies could be twisted, dismantled, and put together mid-fight, as a few cases where Ray dispatched them without flooding their system with lighting energy showed. But they simply lacked weaponry. At first, Pakura was excited when she saw their firepower. The yellow exploding balls were marvelous. Such strength. With the number of puppeteers Sunagakure possessed, if she could give every one of them 10 of those puppets. But the longer the fight went on, the more flaws with her plan Pakura saw. These puppets had massive firepower, but that was honestly it. They had no internal weapon systems, and their dismantling and putting themselves back together was also not up to snuff. Compared to the puppets of Sunagakure, they were simply disappointing. It appeared as if without a puppeteer controlling them, the creator of these puppets had to give up most of what made puppets deadly and focus on one destructive attack the puppets could be programmed to do even without being controlled. Pakura was still interested in the technology of puppets' remote control, but she now saw there would be much to adjust and research once she got it. Acknowledging that, Ray also decided to make it easier on her. Looking at the childlike, motionless puppet with a cracked head on the floor, he noted his seal took effect. The puppet still twitched, showing it was trying to get back into the fight, but the paralyzing seal stopped it. The whole battle was littered with only 2 types of corpses. The first were puppets fried from inside out, and the second ones were these twitching, still functioning ones that were a gift for Pakura. Ray's lighting chakra coursed through enough of the puppets to know the remote control technology would be useless to her, as it took way too much place within the puppet's internal mechanisms. But why would he tell her that? She had to be punished for teasing him. Meh. I will just give her the idea of using the spiritual part of shadow clones and merging it with puppets to create pseudo-puppet clones when she comes to me crying. Her remotely controlled puppets are impossible to outfit with even basic Tsunagakure's puppet weapon systems. Rei shrewdly decided. While fighting, Rei's mind naturally trailed towards how he would recreate the puppets. Such a thing was inevitable, as the minds of many experienced ninjas worked in a similar way. It was a part of their training. During a fight, they always thought about how the enemy's techniques work, how to recreate them, and how to make them ineffective. Only the most skilled and experienced could recreate the techniques of their enemies, and that was also why even the basic, matured Sharingan was such a cheat, as it allowed its user to bypass the needed knowledge and experience to do just that with a simple look. Rei, however, had enough knowledge and experience to figure out a few ways to make Pakura's desire come true. Now that I think about it, Rei looked around with furrowed eyebrows. How come I wasn't attacked yet? I must have been thinking for well over 20 seconds now. It was then a slow and contemptuous clapping sound resounded from above, making Rei look up in surprise. There, on the wall, stood a white-skinned man, looking down at Rei while surrounded by the remaining puppets, in a way as if he was a king surrounded by his obedient servants. Needless to say, Rei quickly got annoyed at the cocky look the dude was shooting him. Obviously, his enemy thought he could squash him like a bug. I mean, sure, I used nothing more than lightning-enhanced kenjutsu, but I don't think I deserve to be underestimated so much. Rei disgruntledly thought, inwardly sighing. Clearly, the pale guy didn't think decimating a few thousand puppets was worth acknowledgement. Ah, youth. Rei amusedly shook his head. Always thinking they own the world. The eyes of the pale guy narrowed at the gesture, yet he tried to show he was not perturbed because of it. You have some skill, intruder. He coldly proclaimed, if you think someone like you can stand against the Otsutsuki clan, however, you are greatly mistaken, foolish mortal. And who are you supposed to be, boy? Rei cockily taunted as he put his right hand on his hip and raised an eyebrow in a condescending way. In his defense, the guy's stupid mug was just asking for it. I am Toneri Otsutsuki, the last descendant of the brother of the Sage of the Six Paths, Hamura Otsutsuki. Toneri proudly yet calmly exclaimed, as if he completely missed the mocking undertone in Rei's question. And I am going to kill you. That so? Rei hummed, inwardly a bit disappointed that his taunting bore no fruit. Then again, if the guy let himself be consumed by rage at the very first veiled insult, then that would be disappointing in its own way, too. Well, good luck with that, then. Rei shrugged. There weren't many prospective opponents around Rei who liked to enjoy some pre-battle banter. Conan returned such an attempt with a wind-enhanced cutting paper. Tsunade liked to dash head-on during their spars, making it unable to chat before the fight. Pakura was the serious type. That left Rei only with Ringo and Mei. Ringo, however, simply refused to spar with the excuse of being too busy, and as for Mei, the less one said about her, the better. That was one matchup where you simply didn't want to give her time to fill the surroundings with her chakra, so no banter either. Aside from them, Rei didn't fight much these days if one didn't count paperwork and scheming. Toneri was really a breath of fresh air in his otherwise dull, non-battling life. That said, Rei's nonchalant act was not because he was arrogant. He simply felt the levels of Toneri's chakra and its density. Sure, the guy's chakra was incredibly dense, and it was no wonder no one could stand up to him in the future when he deemed to lift his bony ass from his moon throne for a visit. If Rei had to rate him, he would have to put the guy on the same level as Madara and Hashirama when it came to the strength of his chakra. But Toneri, as he was right now, did not have Tenseigan. Heck, he didn't even have Byakugan. And as far as Rei knew, there was no Biju subjugating bloodline either in the man. The strength of Toneri lied in his unpredictable and unknown jutsu and his strong chakra, which Rei felt wasn't threatening at all. After all, Even without Blackie, Ray still had more and denser chakra than Toneri right now. The fact Toneri did not even check Ray's strength was not lost on him either. In Ray's opinion, Toneri was the perfect example of a strong guy who spent his entire life in the proverbial closed cultivation and never actually fought anyone even remotely close to his power level. It's so obvious. The arrogance in his eyes, the demeanor of superiority. He has total confidence he could wipe the floor with me at his leisure. Ray inwardly sighed while outwardly smirking at Toneri. You know, he started speaking, making Toneri raise an eyebrow at him. When you are about to fight somebody, Ray meaningfully paused, you should never give him the time to prepare his offense and strike first. The second these words left Ray's mouth, Toneri didn't have even a chance to evade, as the breeze that had no reason to be present on the moon suddenly picked up and pressurized wind slammed right into Toneri's right cheek, bitch-slapping him off of the castle walls into the area in front of it. I bet he didn't expect that. Ray snickered. Clearly, as far as unknown and unexpected techniques went, both could play that game. Toneri, shaken due to the sudden attack, stood confusedly up, showing that the attack didn't hurt him much, despite the small bruise on his cheek, adding a little bit of color to his face. The extent of the damage he suffered was a sting on his cheek and a small chance at an unlikely heart attack from shock, but that was about it. So, it is not only his chakra that is strong, huh? His body is also quite durable. Ray reckoned, his chakra is more of the physical variety then. There were many bloodlines where their users had strong chakra, yet weak bodies. Strong chakra equals strong body only applied if chakra leaned more towards the yang. Figures. He can survive in the vacuum of the moon, so I should have expected a strong body. Ray settled down his thoughts and prepared for a more serious exchange, since Toneri was getting out of his shock. Toneri's eyes finally grew serious, much to Ray's satisfaction. It was not about beating his arrogance out of him anymore. No, Ray simply wanted to see Toneri's techniques and how they differentiated from the usual jutsu. You will regret that, Toneri menacingly uttered, rubbing his cheek while slightly bending his knees in preparation for an attack. Ray, who seemingly stayed indifferent to Toneri's change of state, just motionlessly stood in his place, looking at Toneri as if he found him incredibly amusing. He knew that deep inside, it ate at the guy, plus it was fun pissing somebody who absolutely refused to let it show. In one swish, Toneri leaped at Ray, becoming a blur due to the speed he reached. And Ray, much to Toneri's surprise, sidestepped. Using the momentum from the sidestep, Ray's right hand was already on its way towards Toneri's right cheek, aiming to strike the bruise there to add to the already received humiliation. But this time, it was Ray's time to be pleasantly surprised when Toneri managed to duck under his strike and in a circular movement reminiscent of the Hyuga Taijutsu style, counterattacked aiming at the center of Ray's chest. Ray noted the faint glow of chakra buildup around Toneri's hands and instantly assumed his opponent was about to use a jutsu to deal the maximum amount of damage in that single strike, which meant he needed to avoid that. Naturally, it was far too late to dodge physically, so Ray chose a different approach. Instead of dodging himself, he decided to force Toneri to abandon his attack. Swinging his fist at Toneri's chest, Ray made sure to coat it in a copious amount of lighting chakra, creating a raikiri. Let's see if he has guts, Ray thought as the world around him slowed down, Toneri's fist approaching his chest while his fist was raising its way towards Toneri's chest. He watched as Toneri's eyes gained that understanding light and showed the first bit of fear during their brief fight. The guy noticed this would not be a cost-free attack. Sure, Ray would let Toneri land this blow, but that would mean getting his by a similar attack in exchange. Now Ray only wanted to see how Toneri would react. Will he cease the attack and jump back, or will he continue? Ray really wanted to know. Toneri's fist was getting closer and closer to the point of no return, and the indecisiveness in his eyes was almost palpable. At the last moment, however, Toneri clearly deemed this exchange too pricey and flawlessly flowed from attack to evasion through jumping back. While Ray was a bit disappointed Toneri chickened out, he could respect it as it showed the guy had at least some measure of brains. After all, which idiot takes a blow head-on in order to land his own hit, right? If you do that again, you are sleeping on the couch for the foreseeable future. Are we understood? Conan's cold voice resounded in Ray's head while he got the impression his other wives absolutely agreed with her. Ray's back instantly straightened out as he answered, "Yes, dear." His wives were seldom serious and almost never controlling. They let him do whatever he wanted to a point, and his current situation was a testament to that. That said, Ray knew when he was beaten and had to actually listen to their complaints in order to preserve that peace. Women, he inwardly grumbled, trying to be quiet. Telepathy, pfft, never again. We heard that. 5 voices chorused together. Apparently even his thoughts were now compromised. Ray turned his gaze back towards Toneri, deciding to focus on the fight. The poor lad had no idea he would serve as a way for Ray to vent his current frustration. Toneri watched Ray with a difficult expression that came off as a half scowl and half grimace, because he was simultaneously trying to appear nonchalant. Right now, it was clear to him that he did not hold the proverbial edge in the fight, which was a totally new experience for him. Toneri spent a lot of time watching the ninjas from the elemental nations and comparing his skill to them, always getting the same result. He was simply unbeatable for them, and as such, he never thought somebody could give him any difficulty. Yet the man in front of him was doing exactly that. What kind of freak is that anyway? Did he really try to go for double suicide there? Who does that? Toneri's thoughts were much more distraught than his expression involuntarily showed. Realizing this won't be as easy as he previously imagined, Toneri decided to get serious right off the bat. Ray instantly sensed a change in his opponent's chakra, mesmerized as it started to leave Toneri's chakra system and started to seep directly into his body, cloaking him in itself and changing the color from darkish blue to a much lighter shade of almost green. In fact, Ray could see the chakra with his very eyes, because Toneri's body was as if bathed in it. Quirking his lips, Ray frowned. He didn't expect Toneri to be able to enter chakra mode without having Tensegan, but clearly, he could. Here I thought I could just chill, but no. The guy clearly wants to try hard it. How bothersome. The second Toneri's body finished charging up with chakra, he disappeared in a blur, and Ray had a hard time blocking the brutal combo of punches Toneri unleashed on him. Evading and deflecting Toneri's fists, Ray tried to get a feel for his opponent's newfound power and speed, slowly adjusting his own tempo to match him while also checking how the chakra mode affected his body on a deeper level. As he did this, he couldn't help but grin when the thought of Tsunade telepathically watching this fight through his eyes occurred to him. He had no doubt she was doing the exact same thing as him, already trying to come up with a way to recreate the chakra mode for herself. Toneri tried to use his superior speed to get his punches through Ray's guard, aiming at the gaps in his defense. Yet, Ray somehow always twisted his hands in a totally unexpected circular manner and blocked Toneri's blows with his forearm or elbows. This led Toneri to become rather frustrated, which only made him more rash during the quick-paced exchange. But as the technique and precision of his blows lessened, the power behind them increased. Ray found himself deflecting more and more rather than blocking, moving all around the vast, empty place in front of the castle, while being happy he chose to pull Toneri outside for their fight. The surroundings were getting quite trashed up as cracks formed on the ground, and rocks were occasionally sent flying all around. Somewhere during their fight, Ray understood that Toneri's chakra-enhanced blows would be too much for his base body. Instead of taking hits head-on, he rather redirected them away from himself. As Toneri became more impatient, this was becoming easier, but also, the danger of injury increased as even a single hit could break a bone. That actually surprised Rei a lot. His body could withstand Tsunade's chakra-enhanced punches with a minimal counter-enhancement. And here, a guy was almost matching, if not surpassing in some moments, Tsunade's strength. The technique he was using was rather ingenious. Suddenly, Rei found a hole in Toneri's guard and instantly took it, sending a counter-strike at Toneri as he deflected his right arm to the side, aiming for his chin to incapacitate him. Smirk was starting to form on Rei's lips the closer his fist got to Toneri, who seemed unable to react. Only for his fist to phase right through Toneri. Rei blinked in surprise, momentarily not understanding what happened before a sharp sting in his abdomen pulled him out of his reverie as he found himself flying through the air due to Toneri's kick. Toneri watched in satisfied fascination as the body of his opponent crashed into the rocky wall, creating a crater there while sending a massive cloud of dust into the surroundings. He clearly heard the resounding crack when his kick landed. Calmly walking forward, Toneri thought that this fight was over. The closer Toneri got, the more obstructed his vision became because of the dust cloud, but he wasn't fazed by it. This was the very first time he fought against a ninja from the elemental nations, and honestly, he was surprised how strong his opponent was. Now, he just wanted to savor the taste of his victo. A hand suddenly pushed through the cloud of the dust, grabbing Toneri's face and pulling him inside with a mighty yank. Before Toneri managed to gather his wits enough to react, he found his body spinning for a moment before the back of his head was roughly bashed on the rocky wall, causing a spiderweb of cracks to form. Instinctively, Toneri's hands took hold of the forearm of his attacker, who still held his face in a crushing grip, and tried to push his hand away. The only thing Toneri could see was the frightening grin on his opponent's face. Despite the resounding cracks that came out of the forearm, Toneri's hands were squeezing. Yet, no matter how clearly Toneri felt his hands crush the bones in Rei's forearm, the hold of his hand on Toneri's face didn't cease. Instead, it actually grew stronger, making Toneri feel very uncomfortable and almost painful pressure on his skull. "You're gonna try a lot harder than this, boy. If you think a bit of bodily mutilation is enough to end a fight, then you clearly underestimate the ninjas of elemental nations far too much," Rei jokingly quipped, completely ignoring the pain in his hand while inwardly comparing his current situation to what usually happened during his spars with Tsunade. That woman could be ruthless and tear his body to pieces at times, only to get an excuse to put him back together. A few pulverized bones. That was what the guy who decided to destroy the ninjas expected to stop him? Wasn't that quite laughable? Toneri rasped through Rei's palm, causing Rei to lean closer, trying to hear what his opponent had to say. "Come again? I think I didn't hear you quite well," he nonchalantly said, pushing Toneri's head a bit to the left, grinding the back of it on the hard rocks of the moon in a way he surmised was very painful. This allowed Rei to get a better look at Toneri's right eye, and when he saw the look in it, his cheerful demeanor froze for a second. That, however, was far too late, as a yellow flash followed by a strong pushing force smashed into Rei, tearing his forearm away from his elbow due to Toneri's grip on it, while the rest of his body flew back as the yellow exploding ball hit his chest point blank. It was only when he was flying through the air did Rei realize that the look in Toneri's eye was far from someone who was caught in an inescapable hold. Somehow, that made him release a small, involuntary smile of satisfaction. The fight was finally getting interesting.